when my eyes were gouged out. My mother is shopping with my cousin to buy clothes. I was brutally fed a bottle of sulfuric acid and died of pain. My mother scolded me in an irritable voice. Xia Shengsheng, can you be as obedient and sensible as Wanru? If you have the ability to run away from home, don't call me. But when she saw the crime scene, her mother couldn't help but rushed outside the house and retched. A criminal psychologist specially hired by the Jiangqing police force. Do you also feel sick when you face the body of your biological daughter? 1. After receiving the call, the police team quickly rushed to the scene of my death. The empty building had drafts from almost all sides, and the air exuded the rancid smell of blood. The blood on the ground is not dried yet, and dense flies are clinging to it. My mother was stunned for a moment when she saw my body. Then he turned around and ran outside the house, covering his mouth and retching. Captain Zhao Wei of the police force silently put on a mask and handed his mother a bottle of water. I watched my mother calm down for a moment before entering the smelly room again. The corpse in front of him had no head and seemed to have been severely chopped off along the neck. The upper body was cut open from the chest, revealing the rotten organs inside. The lower body was so bloody that it was impossible to tell the gender. My soul felt a little sad as I watched my mother carefully inspecting the body. It seemed like it had been a long time since we, mother and daughter, had been so close. Every time my mother and I met, it was always tense and ended in a quarrel. My mother frowned and stared at an old scar on the corpse's arm. My eyes lit up. Did my mother recognize me? This scar is from when I was young and wanted to pour hot water for my mother. But he was accidentally burned. There's no way Mom wouldn't remember. At that time, she was still looking at my scars and said distressfully, Mom will never let Xingxing get hurt again in the future. Unfortunately, after my cousin Yi Wanru came to our house, the person my mother wants to protect is no longer me. She felt sorry for her helpless cousin, but she made me live like an orphan. But my mother just glanced at the scar and looked away without caring. She looked at the horrific corpse, frowned, and asked the forensic doctor, Sister Zhang, did you find anything during the preliminary autopsy? The forensic doctor stood up and said with a frown, the deceased was a young woman about 25 years old. The body was poured with corrosive liquid before death. The specific cause of death needs to be returned to the Bureau for careful autopsy and verification. The forensic doctor's voice paused, and he squeezed out a sentence between his teeth. The deceased also suffered severe sexual assault and abuse before his death. My mother's eyes turned red when she heard this. It can be inferred from the death of the deceased that the murderer was venting his anger. What a pity for such a young girl. My dear mother, I have always had a strong ability to empathize. She will regret that a young life has passed away. But he never felt sorry for me once. I carefully studied the compassion on my mother's face. If she knew that the deceased was me, would she still have red eyes for me? Of course not. My mother will only be happy because she has one less daughter to bore her. After all, when I was bullied by my cousin and her followers, my mother would just look at me with disgust and say, Xia Shengsheng, can you please stop lying? If you don't bully Wanru, I'll thank God. In my mother's mind, the victims of the cases she handled might need her more than me. Her mother's cell phone rang, and she looked at the screen with a hint of warmth on her face. I poked my head over. It was Yi Wanru who sent a message asking my mother if she would come home for dinner tonight. My mother responded with a voice message, and her voice was softer than I had ever heard before. My dear daughter, I have a difficult case here. You don't have to wait for me tonight. Take care of yourself. Mom will buy you whatever you want to eat. Captain Zhao, who was standing aside, heard this and chuckled. Old Lu, you have reconciled with Shengsheng. I thought you were still complaining about the child. Mother and daughter are heart to heart. How can there be an overnight feud? My mother pursed her red lips and whispered, my only daughter is Wanru. Lao Zhao, please don't mention Xia Shengxing again. She ran away from home and disappeared for 5 or 6 days. She didn't even go to pay homage to Lao Xia on his death anniversary. Mother, I didn't run away from home. I could never go home again. 2. The task force takes this murder case extremely seriously. The police were worried that my tragic death would cause social unrest, and it was urgent to catch the murderer. The forensic doctor sat at the conference table and handed the file bag in his hand to my mother. Old Lu, please take a look at the autopsy report I made back at the bureau. The mother read the report with a cold expression. The victim is a female, unidentified, about 25 years old. She was killed in an unfinished building in the suburbs. She had multiple fatal injuries all over her body. The cause of death was that sulfuric acid corroded the internal organs, and the severe pain caused shock. The lower body organs were cut off and sexually assaulted, and the head was chopped off. This child died, too tragically. Captain Zhao noticed that she looked unhappy and asked, Old Lu, from the perspective of criminal psychology, what will be the key to solving this case? My mother bit her lip and said, we need to further determine whether it was a vendetta or a love killing. We cannot rule out the possibility of sex. However, judging from the tragic torture of the deceased during his lifetime, there should be a grudge between the murderer and the deceased. I shuddered. My mother's analysis was all right. A police officer said in confusion, the head of the deceased was severed and has not been found. I don't know how long the deceased has been missing. How come no family members have come to report the crime? I felt sour in my heart and looked at my mother, who was still analyzing the case carefully. In my mother's heart, she never cared about my whereabouts. I appear or disappear. To my mother, they are just unimportant things. My mother cleared her throat and lightly opened her red lips. Judging from the situation at the crime scene, the murderer should have a psychological problem. When he committed crimes, a large part of the reason was just to vent his resentment. We need to confirm the identity of the deceased as soon as possible and find out her network of connections. Team Zhao nodded with satisfaction. Xiao Zhang, you take Team A to the crime scene to check again. The trace section will also work hard, and we'll go together to see if there are any clues. After thinking for a while, he added, if you have girls at home, tell them to pay attention to safety recently. Mom sighed and took out the phone. Captain Zhao nodded at her from afar. Old Lu, don't forget your voice. You are mother and daughter. I looked at my mother, who was slightly stunned for a moment, with a trace of irritation in her eyes. Old Zhao, my old Xia passed away because of her, and I couldn't get over this hurdle. In these years, the person who has depended on me for life is Wanru, not Xia Xingxing. Captain Zhao pinched the bridge of his nose and said helplessly, you should also listen to Xingxing's explanation. She has been secretly caring about you, behind your back. My mother pursed her lips and looked a little stiff. Old Zhao, I know you are doing it for my own good, but the mother-daughter relationship between me and her has long been gone. She killed her father and bullied Wanru all these years. She is a born bad person. I smiled to myself. My aunt died in a car accident after her divorce. My parents adopted my cousin. When my cousin and I went out, we met my father, who was on a mission. I know I have to pretend that I don't know Dad outside. But Yi Wanru ignored my obstruction and showed an innocent but terrifying smile to her father. Uncle, are you catching bad guys? Her father was exposed by her and died tragically at the hands of criminals. But my cousin said that it was me who stopped my father, which led to his undercover identity being discovered. My mother looked at my cousin who was crying so hard and me who was dumbfounded, and she chose to believe her. Because I was so young at that time, I was already frightened. My mother took it upon herself to convict me. Mom recalled the situation when she learned about her father's death, and anger ignited in her eyes. Old Zhao, when Xia Wei died, Xia didn't even cry. In these years, she never went to worship with me on Xia Wei's death anniversary. She is such a cold-blooded, white-eyed wolf. Mom, every year on the anniversary of Dad's death, you take Yi Wanru to the cemetery. I just don't want to worship my father with the person who killed him. Captain Zhao shook his head and disagreed with his mother's statement. You say she is cold-blooded, but every year Xingxing asks me to put the birthday gifts on your desk. When Lao Xia died, Xingxing was just a child. He paused and then said, besides, you can't just listen to your adopted daughter's words about what happened back then. My mother squeezed her hands tightly and her chest heaved. Old Zhao, you don't have to be a lobbyist for Xia Xingxing anymore. She came out of my belly, so I naturally understand her. From now on, only Wanru will be my biological daughter. Captain Zhao looked at her stubborn look and could only say, after staying up all night, you should go home and rest first. I will contact you to return to the bureau if necessary. Mother, when my mouth was corroded by sulfuric acid and white smoke came out, I wanted to tell you again. Mom, take care of yourself. But under the extreme pain and burn, I was unable to say a complete sentence. I could only listen to my mother's voice scolding me irritably on the other end of the phone. Xia Xingxing, can you be as obedient and sensible as Wanru? If you have the ability to run away from home, don't call me. My breathing gradually became weaker, and before I was tortured to death. I watched helplessly as the demon walked toward me with a knife in hand. Before I died, I was still thinking that I hadn't given my mother the birthday gift I planned for this year. 3. The home is still as warm as it was before I died. For her mother, this is the home that belongs to her and Yi Wanru. My presence will only disturb them, mother and daughter. Yi Wanru thoughtfully poured her mother a glass of honey water. She gently squeezed my mother's shoulders and massaged her. Mom, is this case so difficult? You see the dark circles under your eyes. My mother pinched Yi Wanru's cheek and said in a friendly tone, you have good eyesight. Our Wanru is the little angel given to me by God. But my cousin lowered her eyes and big tears fell down her face. Mom, but my sister Xingxing always says that I am a devil. There was a twinge in my heart. Here it comes again. Yi Wanru puts on this pretentious look again. But my mother likes this the most. Often at this time, I should be scolded. Yi Wanru looked at her mother's gloomy face, and her eyes flashed with satisfaction. She has long since taken my place, and became the only daughter in my mother's heart. The blood bond between my mother and I couldn't withstand her instigation. When Yi Wanru brought me to my perverted suitor, he knew what would happen to me, but he still did it on purpose. She is naturally confident, because in my mother's heart, she has always been a simple and kind-hearted good daughter. After Yi Wanru came to my house, not only did I lose my dad, I completely lost my mom. Yi Wanru bit her lip with her teeth. Her face was pale, and her look was endearing. Mom, does my sister still blame me for breaking her doll? When I heard her mention the doll, I looked at my mother's expression intently. It was a cotton doll that our family of 3 made together when my father was still alive. But my mother looked at the red tip of Yi Wanru's nose and the mist in her eyes and said distressfully, Wanru didn't do it on purpose. It was just Xia Xingxing who was in a bad mood. Mom has already taught her a lesson. When she comes home, I will ask her to apologize to you, and you can vent your anger however you want. Yi Wanru knew my mother's temper very well, and she easily provoked her mother's anger. Mom, Sister Xingsheng is not the type to apologize casually. In all these years, she has never said a word of sorry to my uncle. My mother's breathing became rapid, her lip lines tightened, and her eyes became sullen. The pent-up anger in my heart surged up. Yi Wanru, this harmful person, had the nerve to mention my dad. After she witnessed me rejecting the perverted suitor, she smiled and said to me, Xia Xingsheng, I think you two are a good match. Wouldn't it be better for you to marry me? There was anger on my face, and my tone was cold. If you want to get married so much, why don't you agree to his confession? Yi Wanru raised her eyebrows, brushed the curly hair on her shoulders, and sneered. Xia Xingsheng, why are you pretending to be stupid? Don't you know how much your mother hates you? If I were you, I would have no shame to stay in this house. My cousin's father is alcoholic and violent. After my aunt got divorced, he took revenge and killed her with his car. I always felt that my cousin was a little twisted in her heart, but she always concealed it very well. She was jealous of my happy family and wanted to take my place in the family. Now, she did it. My mother had great trust and pity for her because of her weakness and pitifulness. My eyes were extremely cold, and I looked at Yi Wanru. The blood bond between my mother and I will never be cut off. You are just a pitiful clown. Yi Wanru was angered by my ridicule. She used scissors to cut the dolls we made together as a family. That was the last thing my father left for me. It was also the last beautiful memory my mother and I had. My face turned red. I raised the water glass on the side and threw it at Yi Wanru. Seeing the blood on her forehead, I felt happy. All the hatred that she had slandered, humiliated, and suppressed over the years was vented. But a strong force came, and I was pushed to sit on the broken pieces of the cup. The palm of his hand was cut and bleeding. My mother's angry voice sounded in my ears. Xia Xingsheng, I know you are vicious at heart. Look, Mom still won't listen to my excuses. In her mind, everything I did was wrong. Just as she was determined that I was bullying this poor little Yi Wanru. But even if I wanted to talk to my mother about the grievances I had suffered over the years, I couldn't. Because I had been killed by Yi Wanru. My heart was filled with pain, and my soul felt as if it was being torn apart. Mom, no matter how you scold me this time, I won't even respond, and I can't secretly send you gifts to ease the relationship. I can only lie in the cold morgue. I hope you can identify my body and seek justice for me. 4. Just as my mother was about to open the refrigerator and cook, she was called to the police station by Captain Zhao. I wonder if she will blame me. After all, my death delayed her and Yi Wanru's time together. Team Zhao held a transparent evidence bag and handed it to his mother. Old Blue, the people from the trace examination department discovered that there was a small ticket in the inner pocket of the corpse's coat. The receipt was stained with blood, and my mother held it up to the light and looked at it carefully. She slowly read out the name of the store on the receipt, Customized Changza. There was endless bitterness in my throat. This is my birthday present for my mother. Mom's cell phone rang suddenly. On the opposite side was a gentle female voice. Hello, do you know Miss Xia Xingsheng? My mother clicked her tongue and said impatiently, You know, she's doing bad things outside again? The person on the other side was silent for a few seconds, then hesitantly said, After she took away the custom-made Chong Sam last time, we found an accessory left behind, but we can't contact her here. Her emergency contact number is for you. My mother was confused and then said, I'll go check it out tomorrow. Can you tell me your address? Mom read it and wrote it down on the paper. Team Zhao's expression suddenly became serious. Old Lu, how come this address is the same as the one in the evidence receipt? Mom shrugged indifferently. Maybe the store is more famous. What is Xia Xingsheng doing? Captain Zhao disagreed and said, Call Xingsheng and see if she is safe now. I always feel uneasy in my heart. My mother pursed her lips and said impatiently, Old Zhao, why are you worried about her? The most important thing now is to find out the identity of the deceased. Mom, you are so close to the truth. But it's so far away from me. How could such a powerful criminal psychologist subconsciously ignore the Chong Sam shop? Or is it because, as always, you hate everything related to me? On the back of the receipt is my handwritten pickup date. My mother still doesn't recognize my handwriting. Captain Zhao asked my mother, Can you deduce the image of the deceased through the handwriting? When my mother talked about work, her tone became calmer. The deceased had round eyes, a high nose, a height of about 165 centimeters, and a slender figure. Her family background was very good, but judging from her handwriting, she had a gentle and kind personality, but she seemed depressed, insecure, and lonely. She was stunned for a moment. Was it because the appearance of the deceased analyzed was similar to mine? Mom, can you analyze the psychology of the deceased? But never want to try to read my heart. It seems that there is always only a little difference between me and my mother. Almost reconciled, almost found out that the deceased was me. Team Zhao's tone became more serious, as if he was very dissatisfied with his mother's attitude. Old Lu, you were seriously ill back then. Before you returned to work, you asked the people in the task force to have a meal in advance. Please take care of you. There was suspicion in her mother's eyebrows. Old Zhao, stop joking. You can't lie even if you say good things to Xia Sheng. You always say that she doesn't care about you. When you fell ill and fell into coma last year, she ran back and forth and secretly made nutritious meals for you and sent them to the hospital every day. Captain Zhao said angrily. There was self-mockery in my eyes. Over the years, everyone can see how much I care about my mother. But my mother only thinks that I am cold-blooded and ruthless. Under Captain Zhao's earnest words, my mother still compromised. She concealed her restlessness and dialed my number. But only the cold female voice reminded her over and over again that the other party was turned off. The mother looked bored and complained. Don't answer my phone? That's fine. It's best not to contact me for the rest of your life. I wish I never had a daughter like you. Team Zhao took my mother and team members to the Chongsam shop. I couldn't help but feel excited and happy that the case was about to make progress. As for my mother, I don't expect her to react to my death. The Chongsam shop owner is an elegant middle-aged woman. After hearing the police's purpose, she looked at the order on the receipt and searched for the day's records. Here, it's a Chongsam customized by this beautiful sister. She said it was a birthday gift for her mother, and she specifically told me to make it more precise. The shop owner called up the surveillance camera and released it. Captain Zhao stared at the figure in the video with his mouth open. In the picture, I walked into the store with a smile on my face, choosing Chongsam styles with the store owner. The shop owner sighed. The person you are here to investigate is not the victim of the torture and murder case that has caused a lot of noise these days, right? I have a deep impression of the sister. She is very gentle and meticulous. It took me a long time to choose a color that suits her mother. I don't know how sad her mother is when she finds out. My mother stared straight at the screen. The atmosphere seemed to have suddenly stagnated, and the chirping of cicadas outside and the quietness inside the store had reached an eerie harmony. Check again. How could it be her? Xia Xingxing couldn't tell where he went to play. The mother suddenly grabbed the shop owner's hand. The shop owner was startled and said a little aggrievedly, "The order on the list is the same as the one ordered by the sister, and the date matches. The most expensive one in my store. No one buys it on weekdays." Mom panted violently. The veins on her hands bulged, and her nails dug into the flesh. She kept muttering, "The head has not been found yet. The deceased cannot be Xia Xingxing. The harm will last for thousands of years." However, Team Zhao received a call from the forensic doctor. The voices on the other side were sharp and intertwined. "Captain Zhao, is old Lu with you? The DNA test report showed that the deceased was her daughter, Xia Xingxing." 5. The forensic doctor's voice was particularly clear in the quiet store. Mom's body swayed, her legs suddenly softened, and she fell to the ground. She covered her ears with her hands, tears sliding down her face one by one. Tears fell on the cold ground, and also in my heart. "Mom, it turns out you will cry for me too. When Yi Wanru's leg was bruised, you shed tears of distress. But when I was pushed down the stairs by Yi Wanru and suffered multiple fractures, you didn't even look at me. Now that I am dead, you begin to cry for me." Captain Zhao helped his mother up and said in a sad and calm voice, "Old Lu, let Xiao Zhang and the others look for clues here. I will take you back to the station and take a look at Shengsheng first." My mother didn't seem to hear it. She clasped her white nails tightly on Captain Zhao's arm and murmured, "I won't look at it. That body is not Shengsheng's. Shengsheng must be hiding. Give me a surprise on my birthday." The summer was extremely hot, but my mother felt cold all over and could not stop shivering. The police officers around me also had red eyes when they saw my mother's reaction. Team Zhao drove his mother and drove quickly back to the police station. My mother walked into the forensic room with frivolous steps and almost fell. After being supported by the forensic doctor, her voice was hoarse as if it had been rubbed with sandpaper. "Sister Zhang, can I see the test report?" Sister Zhang couldn't bear it in her eyes, and she silently handed the document to her mother. "Old Lu, the deceased has passed away. What we have to do is to catch the murderer for Shengsheng." The sound of summer written in black and white on the paper came into view, and my mother's hand gently touched my name on the report. The last light in her eyes disappeared, and her face turned pale. My mother seemed to be asking the forensic doctor, but also seemed to be asking herself, "Does the sound hurt?" The forensic doctor covered his mouth, turned around, and gently wiped away the tears from his eyes. Captain Zhao gritted his teeth and took the report away from his mother. "Old Lu, how can you investigate the case in this state?" But my mother grabbed Captain Zhao's sleeve and tried to suppress the trembling in her voice. "Old Zhao, no one in the city has a better criminal psychology than me. I can analyze the murderer now." Team Zhao nodded. "Then adjust your mood and we'll hold a case analysis meeting later." Watching my mother take in big breaths, trying to calm herself down. I just feel my eyes are sore. "Mom, when I thought you had disowned me as your daughter, your behavior seems to be telling me that you still love me." I followed closely behind my mother and watched her run into the morgue. Pausing in front of my body, she looked carefully at the scars on my arms. His eyes were empty and lifeless, and he was kneeling on the ground as if he had lost his soul. My mother kept mumbling, "The sound is heard again. It's because my mother didn't protect you." I looked at my mother with some confusion. Obviously, when I was alive, she only argued and scolded me when she talked to me. After I died, why did my mother want to protect me again? The crime scene has not been completely cleared. My mother was sitting at the conference table and spoke in a low tone. The murderer probably committed a crime for the first time and was in a panic when he left. She choked up and said, "The tragic state of the corpse also shows that the murderer had a twisted mentality and vented his violent emotions on the deceased." Captain Zhao looked at his mother's bloodshot eyes and patted her shoulder gently to express comfort. Mom took a deep breath, frowned, paused for a while, and then said, I mentioned that the murderer has mental problems and they should also show obvious symptoms in daily life. He is thin and has a bad temper. We can focus on the people known to the deceased. 6. Hu Yu is indeed a psychopath. He is a devil. After Yi Wanru deceived me, Hu Yu took me to an unfinished building in a daze. I was tortured inhumanely there. He asked me why I didn't agree to his confession. After he vented his animalistic desires, he dialed my mother's phone number at Yi Wanru's prompt. He made me endure the pain of sulfuric acid burning my internal organs while listening to my mother scolding. My mother finished her analysis, her mouth tightened, and the conference room was extremely quiet. The police officers who attended the meeting had compassion on their faces. Mom lowered her head and water dripped on the table in front of her. She wanted to say something else, but her eyes were particularly blank. Team Zhao looked at her and made a decision. Old Lu, you go back first. I will lead the team out to check Xingxing's network. My mother's forehead was covered with sweat. The muscles on her face were shaking, and she responded in a low voice. When my mother returned home in despair, Yi Wanru came forward worriedly. Mom, what's wrong with you? But my mother interrupted her quickly. Stop calling me mom, call me aunt. I know she will feel sad. Over the years, I've thought a lot about our reconciliation as mother and daughter in Hershey. I've been looking forward to my mother hugging me and comforting me for the sadness and grievances I have felt over the years. But it wasn't until I died that I heard that long-lost voice. Yi Wanru's expression was a little gloomy, and she tried her best to squeeze out a smile. Mom, don't scare me. Haven't I been calling you that all these years? My mother didn't answer and walked into my bedroom. My eyes fell on the sewn doll next to the pillow. Mom picked up the doll and said bitterly, Xingxing, do you still blame Mom for beating you that day? Mom has already sewn the doll. If you forgive Mom, come back and see me. I wanted to reach out and wipe away the tears on her face, but I couldn't. Mom, why didn't you open your heart to me when I was alive? Even if my mother blames me and ignores me for my cousin. But I always feel that our mother and daughter will always reconcile one day. Mom sighed, and her eyes fell on my notebook. On weekdays, I have nowhere to express my feelings. Only the notebook my father gave me back then accompanied me through the late nights when I cried one after another. My parents sent me to school together today, so happy. Kids at school said that my parents are both heroes, and I will be a hero in the future too. My aunt passed away, and my mother took my cousin home so that someone would stay with me from now on. My cousin is so pitiful. She has no parents anymore. I have to be nicer to her in the future. My cousin always pinches me secretly and doesn't allow me to tell my mother. My cousin pricked me with a needle, and it bled. I cried and went to find my mother, but she said that lying is not a good child. Dad is on a mission again. I miss him so much. My mother forgot that I was allergic to seafood. She cooked a table of seafood and blamed me for being a picky eater. My cousin was so happy eating it. When will Dad come back? My father was killed by my cousin. Why did Yi Wanru stop her father in front of the bad guy? Mom and cousin are like mother and daughter. No one held my parent-teacher conference. Ms. Lu is an idiot. I don't want to deal with her anymore. She didn't allow me to call her mom anymore, and my cousin complained that I was bullying her. Happy birthday to Ms. Lu. She likes the watch I bought this year. Fortunately, I asked Uncle Zhao to give it to her. Ms. Lu is sick and has lost a lot of weight. I really want to hug her, but I can only secretly send her nutritious meals to replenish her body, like a rat in the gutter watching her and her cousin's happiness. My cousin cut up my doll and persuaded me to marry a perverted suitor. I hate her. I hate her. Mom, when will you believe me? The ink marks on the paper were smeared with water. My mother's teeth were chattering, and a confused light flashed in her eyes. It seemed unbelievable that the daughter he had always loved could be so vicious. Her fingers crossed the words, perverted suitor, again. His fingertips were trembling, as if he had thought of something. Mom's teeth clenched her wrist tightly, and blood oozed from her skin, as if her roars and whimpers were blocked in her mouth. My mother's collapse was due to my death. Or because I discovered that my cousin might be an accomplice in my death. I was really looking forward to her discovering her cousin's true identity. But looking at my mother's reaction at this time, I felt extremely sad. The maternal love I have always longed for. After my death, it finally came to me. 7. When my mother walked out of the bedroom, her expression had returned to calm, but there was still sadness in her eyes. Yi Wanru was talking to someone in a hurried voice. She sat on the sofa with her back to her mother, lowered her voice, and gritted her teeth. Hu Yu, I didn't ask you to kill Xia Xingxing. If you want to die, don't take me with you. She slammed the apple in her hand on the pillow. I brought Xia Xingxing to you, but her death was your own fault. This case has become such a big deal. I advise you to leave here quickly. Okay, I'll give you the money. No matter what happens in the future, this case has nothing to do with me. The cousin's voice was fierce, but strangely calm. My mother's hands were intertwined, and her joints were turned blue and white. But I felt a little relaxed. Yi Wanru's foxtail was finally pulled out by herself. Mom, this is the cute daughter in your eyes. My mother stepped a few times and deliberately made noise. She looked at Yi Wanru, who looked nervous, and said with a smile, What drama are we watching? We are so fascinated. Mom was too tired from work just now, so she didn't mean to lose her temper with you. My mother is a well-known criminal psychologist in the city. It was obvious that something was wrong with Yi Wanru. Yi Wanru was relieved, feeling that her mother did not hear the call she had just made. In other words, she firmly believes in her image of a kind little white flower in her mother's heart. She smiled and went into the house and took out a Cheongsam. Mom, the birthday gift I gave you was specially customized. Please try it quickly. The smile on my mother's face seemed to be unbearable. Her expression dimmed for a moment, and she opened her mouth, but ended up in silence. This is obviously my birthday gift to my mother. After picking up the skirt that day, I was deceived by Yi Wanru. She actually took this Cheongsam as her own. I seemed to hear the whimpering of my soul. Her mother's heart was beating like thunder, but she pretended to be calm and said calmly, Wanru is interested. Mom will try it later. She carefully took the skirt, smoothed the wrinkles on it, and put it gently into the box in the closet. I looked at the contents of the box, my eyes opening wider and wider. There is Dad's medal in the box. There are also the leaves I picked for my mother when I was a child, and the bracelets I made for her when I was a child. Hot tears flowed from the eye sockets. My heart was also burning hot. Over the years, my mother's love for me seems to have been shut up in this box. Yi Wanru wanted to trample me under her feet. She pretended to be casual and said, Sister Xingxing doesn't remember Mom's birthday every year. Mom, don't feel sad because of her. My mother interrupted her in a sharp voice. Okay, I don't want to mention her again. Yi Wanru raised the corners of her mouth and covered it with her hands as if she didn't want her smile to leak out. She tied up her hair, put on a mask, and walked out the door. Wanru, aren't you at home for dinner? Hearing my mother's question, Yi Wanru waved her hand. I'm eating out tonight. You don't have to wait for me. Her mother seemed to be considerate and warned her. Okay, there are no clues to the murder recently. Be careful when you go out and go where there are streetlights. The door was slowly closed. Mom finally couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed on the ground. Looking at the photo of her and Yi Wanru on the wall, her eyes seemed to be shining with fire. My mother ripped off the photo and smashed it into pieces. But Mom, a group photo can be ruined. But those traces of you hurting me for my cousin will never be erased. 8. My mother called Captain Zhao and hurriedly chased him out. She was afraid that if the police didn't arrive in time, the murderer would really run away. My mother followed Yi Wanru not far away and watched her walk into a dim rental house. The man said in a rough voice, Where's the money? Give me the money, and I guarantee that this case will not have anything to do with you. There was silence in the room. The man's voice sounded in disbelief. Bitch! You actually? The sound of sharp weapons being stabbed into flesh kept ringing. The man's voice was weak. Please let me go. I will definitely not expose you. My cousin's cold voice sounded. I only believe what the dead say. The summer evening was extremely hot, but my mother felt bitingly cold. She finally realized that the daughter she had loved all these years was a murderous devil. The door of the rental house squeaked and was slowly opened. Yi Wanru lowered the brim of her hat and was about to leave. But my mother rushed out from the darkness in the corner. She held Yi Wanru's arm tightly. You can't leave. Yi Wanru was startled, took a closer look, and calmed down. Mom, why are you following me? If you pretend not to know, I can cooperate with you. My mother's voice could not hide her anger, and she could not calm down. Yi Wanru, you are sorry to Xingsheng and her father. The cousin sighed and shook his head. Mom, when you go home with me, I didn't leave any fingerprints, and there's no surveillance here. We can still be happily mother and daughter as before, okay? My mother slapped her in the face and covered her chest. Being mother and daughter with a murderer like you killed my husband and my daughter. You are a beast. Yi Wanru looked worried, and there was a hint of irritation in her eyebrows. Damn woman, I am willing to act with you, but you are not satisfied? Then go to hell to accompany your husband and daughter. She raised the knife and stabbed my mother in the chest. My mother just grabbed her and couldn't dodge. There was blood dripping onto the cement floor, forming small bright red puddles. Team Zhao arrived when Yi Wanru was still about to commit murder. There was only resentment in my cousin's eyes, and she stared hard at my unconscious mother. He was still shouting, It's all your fault. Why are you following me? Seeing her unrepentant look, I just felt ridiculous. Such a vicious snake is lurking next to my mother. She never doubted it. Mom, if I were braver. Even if you blame her, she still reveals her true face. If you are willing to calm down and talk to me, will we not be like now, separated by yin and yang? My head was found in the refrigerator at Hu Yu's house. The mouth and nose were gouged out with a knife. My mother fainted again when she saw it. Hu Yu was stabbed to death by Yi Wanru, who was also sentenced to life. My mother sat in front of my grave and told me about their fate. Captain Zhao put down a bouquet of chrysanthemums, looked at his mother's white hair on the temples, and was filled with emotion. Old Lu, you always say that the voice is here to collect debts, but I know that you still love her. But you are too stubborn, and the voice is too tolerant. Your mother-daughter relationship will only continue in the next life. My mother blinked and wiped the moisture from the corners of her eyes. I know, but I was blinded by Lao Xia's death and deceived by Yi Wanru. I selectively ignored the voice. For so many years, I was the one who was wrong. My mother went to see Yi Wanru wearing the Cheongsam I gave her. She was very puzzled. After my sister died, I thought I was very kind to you. I have analyzed the psychology of so many criminals, but why can't I figure out yours? Yi Wanra sneered. Stop your hypocritical face. You just look at me for pity. I hated Xiaowei's pity expression when he looked at me, so I deliberately revealed his identity as an undercover agent. I hate that you treat Xia Xingxing better than me, so I want her to disappear. My mother looked at her arrogant and disgusting face and covered her wrinkled face with her hands. It was my fault. I shouldn't have taken you home in the first place. My mother came to my grave again tremblingly. She wiped the dust off my tombstone and sat down quietly. Shengsheng, why don't you blame Mom? Mom brought you your favorite drink. It's not cold on the road to hell. Just wait for Mom. I watched her take out a bottle of medicine and pour it into her mouth. I wanted to stop her, but I could only watch the smile appear on my mother's haggard and tired face. Mother's eyes fell lightly into the void. She stretched out her hand and made a hook gesture. He murmured, "Don't cry. Mom is here to stay with you. We will still be mother and daughter in the next life." I shed tears, stretched out my little finger, and weakly hooked my mother's finger. I felt my body become lighter, and my surroundings began to become blurry. I know that my obsession has dissipated. Mom, like you said, we will still be mother and daughter in our next life. But in the next life, don't let me cry for you again.